Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Alex, and joining me today is a very special guest. It's Mick Rathbone, or Baz, as he likes to be known. How are you doing, Baz?
Oh, really good. Special guest. Thank you. Means the world, mate. Very excited. Just been down to the pub for a quick drink with the in-laws and hurry back for this, for sure.
Yeah, nice one, mate. Nice one. So as a former Everton Physio, of course, you were at the club for around 8 years under David Moyes, and had a brief stint as back at the youth team a few years ago. So I'd like to think you have a bit of affection for the club after being around for so many years.
Mate, I'll never forget it. It's very easy to wear your heart on your sleeve and say it's a special club, and it's easy. I never played for the club, but I felt it when I was there, and I'll never forget on my very first day at the club, it had been a big step up for me. I'd come from Preston in the Championship, the big step to the Premier League now, you know. And I remember my first day being very, very nervous and going in there. And I remember everybody had gone home after training. I was running on the running machine. I remember looking at Belfield, it's all houses now even, like, you know. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror running and seeing that badge with the tag on my chest and the words and that, like, you know. I remember thinking to myself, oh, my God, I'm the head of the medical department at Everton Football Club. So, yeah, pretty incredible, almost scary, and such a depth to the whole thing, like, you know. So a special 8 years. And then, as I say, to go back again for another 3 years as head of rehab at the academy. So to work for the club once is great, but to work for it twice is pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is the phrase that, of course, Alan Ball said, once Everton touches you, nothing will be the same. Yeah. So I assume it's a team you still look out for, and a team that you still have to do well, even when you're not working there.
Always. First result I look for, and I've worked for, since I left Everton the first time, I've worked for nearly every club in the country now. But the first thing I look for, match of the day last night, the first result is always Everton. And it is really interesting because in my first few nervous days there, back all them years ago now, I remember Alan Irvine saying exactly the same to me. There is something special about this club. And I say in my books, I don't even know what it is. There's a depth. I don't know the history, the Z cars, the girl with the toffees, the Rupert's Tower, I even say that walking in for matches, I used to get there at 11:30, all the dog poo walking up there, and the fat, it's just something else. And one of my great memories from that first year, and I was watching the Rooney documentary the other day, and that sparked some great memories. And that first year was everything coming together. It was the People's Club, named by Moyes. It was the emergence of Wayne, and nervous times for me. And I'll never forget going down to your West Hams and your Chelseas and that, and all that outside the ground, just Everton fans everywhere and singing and shouting, and yeah, special times, mate. So lucky.
Yeah, that's something that all fans will be absolutely loving to hear, because we can all relate to that. You know, obviously a lot of us haven't worked for the club, but we all get the idea there about the buzz around Goodison and stuff like that. And I say it just feels like such a special club to all of us. What have been like your thoughts this season, and like, because it's been it's been a eventful season to say the least, and not always in the best way. So what have you made of the team, from afar this season?
I think they'll be okay. I think the Lampard appointment was great. I've got to be careful what I say, because I don't want to become over as what's that word, xenophobic. But I think Everton suits British staff, and it's British club, and a very British club. Maybe the club's in London, a bit more cosmopolitan. But for me, Everton is British, and I personally prefer it when there's British people in charge, and that it feels right. And that's not to say that Ancelotti wasn't a great appointment, and I met him, obviously, and the guys he brought in were lovely, and that's not to say they weren't excellent. And that's not to say Marco Silva's staff didn't work super hard, which I'm told they were very hard working and dedicated, and good guys and that. So, but for me, if you're asking me, I think it's British through and through. I think it suits that British model. I think Frank Lampard's a great appointment. I think there's some decent young players coming through. I'm so glad to see Anthony Gordon, aka Soft Lad, named by me all them years ago, that he's doing so well as well. So I think that's important too. And it gives me a kind of a nice feel. And as I said, it's not to say the people before weren't good and they weren't dedicated and they weren't trying hard. But for me, Everton's British and it thrives on its Britishness.
Yeah, maybe a more accurate and maybe perhaps safer way is just to say like someone who it needs to be someone who gets a club like from the moment they walk in. And I guess maybe like you've got more of an advantage if you're British. And of course, Lampards would have played at Goodison so many times and he would have got that buzz around the ground.
Yeah.
And I think to me, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm quite young. I don't really I don't remember it at all. Really, I was born 3 months after David Moyes came to the club, but based on everything I've read about the time, it feels kind of similar. That kind of, kind of a young, hungry manager, like coming in with a point to prove in their managerial career and just like really revitalizing the fans. And obviously you'll remember that time pretty much as well as anyone. So how similar do you think, this kind of impact Lampard's had so far was to when Moyes came in all those years ago?
I think, he's young. I think Frank Lampard probably doesn't need the job in inverted commas like people like me and you need to work, So I think the fact he's coming all the way from, I guess, a beautiful life and environment in West London to work here under some pressure, that tells me he must be super, super committed. So I'm impressed with that. But I have to say, I thought Ancelotti, who I met a couple of times because I went in for a month during lockdown when they had a lot of injuries, worked with the first team. So I met Ancelotti and his staff, and I thought he got the club as well. I thought he understood it as well. So I think you're right to mediate that. When Moyes came in, I obviously first went to Preston as a physio in '95, and Dave was a young player coach and super, super ambitious and talented, which is proving again now. So I obviously was there them first years with Dave, and I saw him coming, and the club had been like probably dropping back for maybe a decade and that, and just staying up on the last game of the season or the last but one game of the season. And I saw him coming like an absolute whirlwind and put a stick of dynamite up everybody, from the recruitment to coaching, to me, to the medical team, and he had no compromises. And to use the phrase, only the best would do, and that. So I was fortunate. It helped him a lot that came with the emergence of Wayne Rooney as well. I think when he coined the phrase "a people's club," it just all came together really, really well. And I say it was interesting because that first year we were favourites for relegation, finished 7th, which was amazing. But the second year we did struggle. And it was really interesting. We went to Houston the following pre-season, and Moisey said to me, Baz, he said, some fans have come over. They're not happy about how things have gone this season, and they've come over to Houston, and they want to meet us in the foyer. And I'm thinking, me? Why do they want to meet me? I'm the physio, But what Dave was saying is, Baz, you need to come in on this meeting. And we sat there in that hotel in Houston in 100 degrees of heat in July. God, what would it be? 2004 probably. And these guys came over, and my God, I mean, obviously they come to watch the pre-season games as well. I'm not saying they came all the way from Liverpool to Houston just for that meeting, but my God, they spoke with such passion and fervour about the club and that. And I had like goose pimples on my back and that, and and Dave spoke well as well, and we kind of reassured them we all wanted the same thing and that, So that was a real close example to me of what it meant to the fans and that, And yeah, if you play bad for Everton, the fans will probably give you more stick than if you play bad for Salford. But if you play well for Everton, you'll get much, much more praise than, clubs who don't have that passion with the supporters. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have people who are going to be critical when you're bad. Who are going to be absolutely over the moon when you win, but not bother when you're bad. It's the same side. It's the opposite side of the same coin. So, there are great bunches of fans like the Everton fans who will let you know when it's not acceptable. But the other side of that is that time we finished 4th. And I remember we beat Newcastle at home, and that more or less confirmed it. Tim netted 3-0, and that walk around the pitch after to a full house, and went out in Liverpool that night, and everywhere was fans, and so you can't have it both ways. You know, if you want that crazy passion of sets of fans like the Everton fans, then you need to know that if it goes your other way, you know, you're going to get stick as well. So, you know, it is part of the price of being at a club like Everton.
Yeah, exactly that, mate. And I think we're all hoping that times like the 04-05 season will be back again soon. Because, of course, I've touched on before, this season it hasn't been the best. And I think one of the main aspects of that, and like one of the most frustrating things, have been just how many injuries we've had. And, of course, as a physio yourself, I think that'll be something you'll be very informed about. And, of course, Danny Donachie lost his job a few months into the season after... I think frustration. I think specifically the handling of the Dominic Calvert-Lewin injury, and of course, you know, you'll know as well as anyone. Like when there's so many injuries in a team, it can probably become overwhelming. Like reading your book and saying about your final season, first time you were there, the 09 or 10 season, when players like Arteta and Jagielka had long-term injuries, and it was just there were just so many. So, like, can you sympathise with this situation and
I mean, it is. When we finished seventh my first season, I got interviewed and they were like, "Oh well, Dave's done a great job, but you've turned the injured club round." And I said, "Thanks, it's mainly luck." And I remember being at Newcastle 7 or 8 years later, where within the space of 20 minutes, Victor had ruptured his lateral ligament and Mikel had ruptured his cruciate ligament. So it can change like that. And it is hard. And in my final year, going up every day with a list that starts with 3 players who are out for like 9 months, it's very hard to get that list down. Add your medium termers, add the odd dead leg on, and every day you're going up. And I know that David, and it was Roundy then, and Woodsy and that, Chris Woods, Steve Round, I know they didn't blame me for the injuries, and I never injured those players, but I am still the one bringing that bad news and saying, right, yeah, it no good. It is his cruciate as we thought, and it is that, and he's going to be out for this and that. And I see them looking at me, and their hearts are sinking. And as I say, I know they're not blaming me, but I'm carrying that. Getting back to Danny, obviously, Danny's a good friend of mine. He was one of my physios when I was there. When my son played at Man U, he stayed in Danny's mom's house as digs. Now I'm very close to Danny. I work with his dad in the Caribbean and that. And Danny's the best at what he does. It's a real shame he's not at the club. It's a real loss to Everton Football Club. You know, I don't know what went on and that, like, you know, but he never injured any players. And Danny Donachie's reputation in the Premier League is that he's probably one of the best around. So I think it's Everton's loss that he's not there anymore, you know.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. So if we go all the way back to like when you started your playing career, the Everton links start pretty early. Like of course when you first signed for Blackburn after a few months, Howard Kendall was your manager, of course, and he was there for a few years before joining Everton. So just what was he like? Because you would have played alongside him and been managed by him. So just how great a man was he? Because you know he's one of the most famous men in Everton's history.
Absolutely, he was great. And what that was, it would have been probably 70. Let me get this right: 74, 75. Birmingham struggling every year, but in the top division, and they cashed in on Bob Latchford, obviously, and in return we got Howard and a player called Archie Styles. We also signed a left winger called John Connolly and a right winger called Gary Jones. So we had quite an Everton connection. They did okay, them guys, in fact, but Howard Kendall was fantastic. And the year after, his performances kind of kept Birmingham up that year. I remember I probably just still at school and won the last game maybe, and everybody running around on the pitch with no boots on, celebrating, staying up. I played with Howard for a couple of years. He was absolutely fantastic. Things didn't go great for me at Birmingham, and I escaped is probably the right word actually to Blackburn. And then I went there in March '79, and then at the end of that season, Howard came in. Unbelievable what he did. His impact as a manager and a player still. He was only 34, I think. And that first season, we won or come runners up in the old third division called League One. Now it's been elevated to League One. We won that. And the next year, we nearly went into the top division, what is now the Premier League. We missed out on the last game. We won at Bristol Rovers. but unfortunately Swansea won at Preston, so we finished third, I think, only 2-1 up in them days. So Kendall's effect on Blackburn was incredible in those 2 years, and it was really funny. We were going to go to Magaluf. The season had finished. We won at Bristol, but we didn't go up because Swansea won at Preston, and we were about to go to Magaluf, and the bus was leaving Ewood Park with all the cans onto the airport and that. And Howard came on. He said, "Look," he said, "I'm sorry, I can't be with you. I can't come to Magaluf. I'm going to Everton." Anyway, we got to Magaluf, and Howard was there with Everton. So on the next drinks table, so we were still together in a funny kind of way. And we knew that Howard would do it there. We knew that he had that incredible blend of humility, hunger, passion, charisma. I think I say my first book, if you Google the word charisma, Howard Kendall comes up. I think it's charisma. I don't know what it is. I can't remember. It was that long ago. But he was special. And I say that, you know, when Simon Garner was our top scorer and still is Blackburn's all-time top scorer, when his wife, Mandy, had the first child in, 1979, Howard sent flowers from the club, and we had lots of get-togethers, and mainly to get pissed. But we had lots of, with Howard, it was much more about the whole being greater than individuals and building a team spirit that was second to none. And that year at Blackburn, and the year after both years, we had a special time, and he built all that. And he was probably the first one who would look at that off the field stuff and that, like, you know. So amazing guy. And when I went back to Everton as a physio, I saw him a few times and that, like, you know. So it was all nice. And obviously, it was very sad when he died, weren't it? So an incredible guy, a one-off, and absolutely Everton through and through, wasn't he?
Yeah, and because the Everton links kind of continued, and ironically, two players in the same position as you, Pat Van den Houw and John Bailey, who of course were both part of the great 1985 side. And it kind of links back to something you said in your first book. I don't know if you remember, but you said about how you spent your entire career at fullback, which there's a part of you that kind of regretted because you had to be so close to the crowd, and you you'd always be right, always be right and right, be able to hear everything they say. So and obviously Pat Van den Houw and John Bailey and yourself in a way, like, are kind of known as such characters, and, you know, in the nicest way possible, a tiny bit mad. So do you think that is kind of that aspect of a way of like coping with having to be?
You know, Al, my very first day at Blackburn, so I was on loan from Birmingham. I was 19, didn't want to play anymore. You've read the book, I'd had enough, but they said, go up. Jim Smith said, try us up at Blackburn, drop down a division and that. I got the train to somewhere called Preston. The manager picked me up, took me to this place called Blackburn and that, and he put me in a hotel, which is probably 200 yards from where I live now. And his final parting words were, settle in, Bales will be around later. Later on, John Bailey came round. So I was 19, he was 21, red capri, me and a guy called Alan Birchinall, who now does all the tannoy at Leicester. He's a legend at Leicester. Piled into the car, over to Angels in Burnley. I didn't drink in them days. God, I was only 19 and that. Piled about 5 or 6 pints of strong lager down me. Got back to my hotel room, opened my suitcase, vomited on all my clothes for the next day. So that was my first impression meeting with Bales. Then his girlfriend introduced me to her sister, who's been my wife for 42 years. So that's that. Pat Van den Houw he's younger than me, Pat. He's probably 2 years younger than me. He was a young player at Birmingham when I was there. He came up from Spurs, and they were in digs not far from us, like, you know. So I got to know Pat really, really well. And I say probably put him under my wing for a couple of years. We had some really good players, young players at the time. This will be like 1977, 78, 79 when I left. But Pat was already making inroads into the first team and that, like, you know. So, yeah, great memories. Long time ago, mate.
Yeah, it's really great to hear, because like they're two names that will mean a lot to a lot of Evertonians, and it's nice to know that the stories that we kind of hear are just as accurate as you might think.
Yeah,
you touched on it there a little bit while you were at Birmingham, and you're struggling with confidence, and how you were like, you know, you're tempted to pack it in at some stages and stuff like that. And you kind of struggle with like reading the newspapers every week and seeing your rating and stuff like that. And obviously the reaction from the crowds in the stadium. But of course, obviously, in the years since you were playing, that's ramped up a lot more with social media, of course. And so, do you think you would have been able to cope with it? And like, how much harder is it for players with social media nowadays?
You probably would have had more support. There's more understanding of these mental health issues, I guess. But no, I'll be honest with you, mate. It would have been difficult because I got in the first team at Spurs for Birmingham, obviously, on a Tuesday night when I was still 17 and I was sub. And I remember the noise and that, and I remember being like terrified in case I had to go on. And I was sat in the dugout counting backwards from 5,400. And I was doing well. I got down to about 300. And the left back, Archie Styles, ex-Everton, he come over and he said, "My groin's gone. Get that CUNT on." And I looked to my left, the physio. I looked to my right, the manager. There were 3 people in that dugout. I thought, wow, this one's for you. And I went on. Did okay, actually. We got beat 1-0, But I say I really struggled because the thing is, I'd been on them tellies with my brother when I was 12, 13, 14. And the noise scared me. And I knew the stick that players got and that, So I was already, I guess, scared and tainted by it all before I even got in the first team. And I remember being at St Andrews in the corner at Blues at Birmingham. You come on in the corner, walk down the passageway to the halfway line and that. And I remember being stood there when I was about 18 and the noise and that. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, if I was getting hanged, I couldn't feel any worse than I feel now. So it was a horrific experience for me. But, it didn't kill me and I did get through it and that, But it came to the point where I'd completely gone. I couldn't pass the ball. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't play football. I was such a good player, England Youth International in the top division at 17. But by the time I was 19, I was a shell. And we played at Bolton on the Saturday, drew 2-2. I played terrible. Trevor Francis got 2. We drew 2-2. And Jim Smith was a manager, ferocious Jim Smith. And on the Monday, he called a meeting and he actually sat down. He said, "I'm not saying anything today." Joe Gallagher, who was a Liverpool lad. Joe, he was a club captain. We liked Joe. Joe was great. He was fine. Joe's going to say a few words. Joe got up and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it, Ali. He went berserk at the young lads. And he said to me, I weren't Baz then until I went to Blackburn. He goes, "Mickey Rathbone," he goes, "You think you're great, but you're SHIT. Well, actually, he was wrong because I thought I was shit. I didn't think I was great. So you're wrong, actually, Joe." Then he said to one of the other young players, "You're big time." He said, the other young player, I'll never forget this. He said, he said, "If my kid turns out like you, I'll drown it." Which I can laugh now, but it weren't funny at the time. Then he sat down and Jim Smith went, "Oh, thanks, Joe, needed saying." I'm thinking, yeah, thanks, Joe, I needed that. I thought, that's it. I'm done here. And Jim Smith got up, he said, "Right," he goes, "we've got Liverpool or Man U on Saturday. You're one of the big clubs at home. And any of you don't want to play, stay behind and tell me." I thought, right. Now, I know that's rhetoric and not an invitation to chat, but I stayed behind. Everyone went out to train. He went, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, you said if you don't want to play, stay behind. I don't want to play. I never want to kick another football." And to be fair, I saw the softer side of Jim and he went, "Look, I know you're struggling. We get it. Go and have a week off and that, but don't pack in you're too good a player." And he saved my life, really, because he suggested going to Blackburn. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to play. I just wanted to get a job, and he just disappeared off the face of the world in terms of football and all the booing and all the stick and that, But yeah, when I went to Blackburn, it was a lot better. You dropped down a division, and being 120 miles from home made a big difference. A prophet's always hated in his own city. That's in the Bible, isn't it? So it was a lot easier, and I did overcome it. But you're absolutely right. I think the social media would have killed me. I remember once playing for Preston at Southend on a Friday night. I remember running out there and some Preston fans there. I'm thinking, oh, God, leave me alone. Why have you come down here? We got beat 2 and they'll give a goal away and that. But you know what? As soon as the final whistle went, yeah, pretty much you shit. No. Which you're entitled to do, I'll get that, But by the time you're in the dressing room, it's gone. There's no, that social media is not chasing you back. I can't click on and scroll through 100 people saying, "Mick Rathbone shit, Mick Rathbone shit, Mick Rathbone shit." Now, when now my lad plays for Rotherham and he played against Wigan Friday, he scored a really good goal. The other side of it is Ollie Rathbone's great. So there is the other side of the coin, and really you've got to man up and just take it on the chin. So maybe I would have been okay. But yeah, when I look back and when I look at now all the scrutiny, so when I played in that game at Southend, got beat 2 or give a goal away, there was 0 footage available of that game. But now, obviously, every single footage of every single professional game is on. You can see everything. So if I was at Salford a couple of months ago, loved it, amazing, what a lovely little club and that, I loved every minute of it. But even if I play for Salford now and give a goal away, that's going to be on my leg. Give a goal away at Sunderland, give a pen away 4 years ago for Rochdale. That's on all the time. And this was a necessary penalty, blah, blah, blah. And that comes on, it comes on. Okay, the other side of it is his goal he scored Friday night. That's been on the telly 20 times as well. So it is kind of both sides of the same coin. But yeah, but I think it's a lot harder for players now. I really do, with all the social media. When I was at Forest a couple of years ago, I was doing some soft tissue work on the young keeper who was playing in the first team and doing okay. And he went quiet and that. And through the face panel, he was reading his phone. I grabbed his phone and it was all the Forest fans. You know, he's not playing well. He should have saved that goal. I said, son, I said, if you start reading that, you may as well pack up playing now. Like, you know what I mean? So there is an element to that. But, you know, we have to understand that the fans are paying your wages. I'll tell you a great story, Al, a great story. We played, I don't know, in the noughties, we played for Everton. I think it was a game it was in Lisbon. It might have been when we got twatted by Benfica, or it might have been a bit before we got twatted by Sporting. It was one of them. It might have been the 5-0 game. And, you know, players now are kind of, social media. You don't have to watch social media, but like when I play for Blackburn, even now I live 3.5 Millwall Park. So when I go to the pub in Blackburn Saturday night or in the players' lounge after the game, I'm available for the fans to say, oh, you were crap today. Or have a pint, you were great today. We had a good team, actually. It was mainly, well done, Baz, today, got your pints and all that. And then on a Sunday, I'll take the dog for a walk in the big park and that. And you're available, accessible for fans to say, oi, you're shit, or oi, you're brilliant. Like, you know, so you're available for that. And it was all part of the game. And it's not on social media, like, you know. But now I know, especially if you go to an Arsenal or the Man City where the players drive under the ground, they never see the fans. Okay, for 90 minutes, they're accessible, like, you know, but now increasingly players are distanced from the fans. The Blackburn players don't live in Blackburn. They live in Wilmslow, and why not? They can afford to live in the nicest parts of the country now, like, you know, although I personally love Blackburn anyway. So they're not really at the behest of the fans like I used to be. I'm going for a game of snooker, some fans on the next table, bloody hell, what's happening? And that, you know, or well done, I'll join a pint. But that's gone a little bit. But after that debacle, I think we got beat 5-0 off Benfica. The next morning, we stayed overnight. The next morning, we pulled up at Lisbon Airport and a bunch of Everton fans pulled in behind. And they were like angry, probably hungover and not happy. And they see us and we're getting the stuff from under the bus, you know, the skips and all the stuff. And the fans come over and they speak from the heart. That's what I love about the Everton fans. And they're saying to TC and Nev and to Moisey, not acceptable, not good enough. Paid like 500 quid to come here. That ain't acceptable. Not blah, 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 blah. And the old doc said to me, oh, bloody hell. Because it got quite ugly. And the old doc said to me, bloody hell, Baz, this is awful. I said, it's not, Doc. I said, this is what it's like. And it's not going to kill the players to hear this because it makes you understand what it means to people, to the fans and that, like, you know. So that uncomfortable 10 minutes unloading the bus at Lisbon Airport. And as I say, some of the fans, that they weren't abusive. They were saying, Davy boy, Davy lad, Moisey, Davy, that ain't good enough, lad. That ain't good enough. I think it was a 5-0 game. I'm telling you, lad, that ain't good enough. Nev, you know, we bleed this, we bleed blue, and that ain't good enough, lad. And we've paid a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And Phil, there were no, you know, Phil, yeah, we get that, yeah, so, yeah, good enough, like, you know. But it did give the players a little bit of a kind of wake-up call. Hey, lads, this is what it means. You know, and as I say, if you're at Man City, you drive under the ground now. And I guess even now at Everton, you drive into an enclosure, the car's parked and you nip in that door. So all of a sudden now you're not like when I used to play for Blackburn, I'd park in the car park 400 yards away and I'd walk past the fan, you know, a couple of fans and all the best today and sign this. And on the way out after the game, shit, or we had a good side. So mainly, well done today, that Nicky, and well done. And, you know, so you were more fronted up to it all. it was a reality that, you know, if you play well, you know, the pints waiting in the players' lounge and the good pats on the back and that, like, and if you don't, there'll be a shit. And you did learn to live with that and accept it as kind of in the other side of the coin, and that, like, you know, you can't have it both ways. So that, like, momentous occasion when the bus pulled into Lisbon Airport, I thought to myself, yeah, it wouldn't do any harm, lads. Wouldn't do any harm.
Yeah, it's a very different time, and another aspect of that, of course, from when you were playing is that because there's so many international players coming in now, especially in the Premier League and stuff like that. It makes local lads a lot rarer. And like you say, you mentioned Andy Gorton earlier this season, who's obviously come in and is doing really well and absolutely is adored by the fans already. But of course, when you were playing, that would have been a lot more common. So do you think the fans might have had a bit more patience with you back then if you've been like one of the few lads who was actually from Birmingham and was like known as a fan?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an element. Obviously, I was playing in Birmingham's first team, earning £50 a week. I was driving to Premier League, let's call it. I was driving to Premier League games at St Andrews in front of 30,000 people in a bloody Ford Angular. You don't know what that is. That's the one that flies in Harry Potter, same colour. I'm pulling up for first team games in a car like that. And even the top players, your Howard Kendalls, they're not earning nowhere near. So the stick was a little bit more good-natured than that, like, you know, but the players now, they earn such fabulous wages and that. It is so hard for young players. Out of my cohort as a young player, there was me, Big Roy, Foxy. Out of our 8 apprentices, probably 5 went on to play 300 games. And probably all 5 of us played some games for Birmingham. The second year was like Tony Coton and Mark Dennis and Kevin Dillon and Pat Vandenhouw. And them lads played hundreds of games, you know, so more players came through. But the fact of the matter is, it's a world game now. You've got the best players in the world in your team. So it's very hard to find 4 lads from within 30 mile or 4, you know, so it is harder. I thought soft lad Anthony Gordon was an exceptional player because I was in the academy with him and that, like, you know, I remember Big Dunk coming over to me one day and say, who's going to do it? Which of your boys are going to do it? And I said, soft lad, Anthony Gordon and that. But you know what? It could have gone either way because he went to Preston, did averagely, didn't play loads of games, come back, did okay. But I was so pleased that they give him that chance and persevere with him. And now I think he's done it. Now, you've still got to do it and do it and do it, but he's now accepted as a first-team player and would be picked on that merit. He's gone through that period of will he or won't he, like, you know, now he's still got to play well every week and that. But I think, like, you know, there was a time maybe early on this season where it was really, it could have gone either way for soft lad, like, you know. So, great kid, big Evertonian, obviously, and I think a real good player. And as I say, a real good addition to the squad. But it's so much harder now for players to come through because it is such a... I played most of my career in the Championship, League Two it was called in them days. I admit I'd probably be a League One player nowadays because all the top division now is mainly the best players from all around the world. So, you know, the players of my era would have been knocked down a division. So I admit I would have been a League One player today, you know, but still probably earning more than I did in them days in the Championship, you know.
Yeah, of course, and obviously of the local lads that have broken through, you mentioned him just at the start as well. Like none have been more famous than Wayne Rooney, of course. And with the documentary coming out recently, and for during the Everton bit, one of the main focuses was that even at 16 years old, that just natural confidence he had, and he just came in and just like he was like, I am better than anyone else here, even at 16, because he was just that good. So just what was that like seeing that come through? It must have been like almost like unnatural at the time, almost.
All through my life, I've been in places where I thought, wow, how am I here? How is this happening? I'm here with history being made. And Moyes said to me, he's a lad coming through and he's going to be the best British player of his generation and that, like, you know. And Wayne had that incredible self-belief. However, he was a really nice lad as well. He's kind of, you know, he's hungry. I know I'm the best player, but it was done in a nice way. He was a very likable, very popular amongst the rest of the players and that, like, you know. And I tell a story in my book about his first Merseyside derby. And because I suffered so much with nerves, I kind of wanted everybody to have those same weaknesses that I had. And it was on Sky. It was at Goodison, I think. And he come in the medical room and he was just, I don't know, knocking the ball against the wall and that, like, you know. And I guess I resented him not being shitting himself. And I said, Wayne, you'll be all right, like, nice and strong, nice, calm. You'll be all right, like, everyone's behind you and that, like, you know, don't be too nervous. He went, Baz, I'm not nervous. And I closed the door. I said, mate, it's okay to be nervous. He goes, Baz, he goes, I'm no more nervous than if I was going out to play with my mates in the street. And I say in my book, and that's why they're there and we're not there. It was really interesting over the years. I noted when I was at Halifax in the conference and the lower leagues and that, those players in that level are more nervous than when I got to the Premier, like TC and Nev and Carzo and all them lads and Tim Howard coming in to play in front of 40,000. And they would like seem less nervous. And I realised that that's why they're where they are. Yeah, they are slightly better footballers as well. But a big part of it is that ability to absorb the pressure and get on the ball. You know, I got on the ball in front of 5,000. I don't in front of 50,000. I was the best training player you've ever seen. But Jesus Christ, not when it's noisy at Main Road in front of 30,000 playing for Blackburn, you know. So it's a special talent and a special part of your DNA to have that confidence to play at that level. And that's in some ways why they're there in the first place. That self-belief.
Yeah, and like you say, in that era, I think, especially under Moyes, I think he had in his head that he wanted to bring in players that would harness that passion at Goodison and would know exactly just how big an opportunity that was. And like was that clear like before games, just how much the players wanted to win that games and like had that hunger, like even now, you know, because being paid so much money and stuff like. And, you know, fans find it easy sometimes to say after a loss, like, oh, they don't care and stuff like that. But could you see just how much they wanted it, like, during the games?
Yeah, the players do care. The players who played for Everton yesterday, they do care. Do they suffer as much as me going into Birmingham pub the night after defeat and getting a lot of personal stick? I'm not sure in those ways, but the players do care. You don't get to that level and that, like... But we had a lot of Evertonians in the team, didn't we? We had Wayne, obviously, Big Dunk, Unzi, you know, people who really cared about the club. And when I went back to the academy, I noticed that Unsworth, Jeffers and Ebrel, who are now the academy guys, Franny left to go to Ipswich and that, they maintained that fantastically well. And when we won the double, when I went back, we won the double, the 23s won the double and that, like, you know, and we played somebody at Goodison in the last game. And if we won, we'd won the double. And Unsworth put on an incredible picture show in the dressing room and an hour-full kick-off about the history of Everton, going back to black and white and that. And it was, honest, mate, tears in your eyes and that. So the people there at the time, you know, you can't expect somebody to come over from Croatia and, you know, love Everton like Wayne Rooney did, can you? You know, we've got to be reasonable on that. We expect to give their best as professionals, and I know they do that. But, you know, they said that about the Old Firm derby. Stubbsy said to me that Old Firm derby is someone else and that. But that's been watered down in a way now. They've got a lot of foreign players. So that's not people being bad people. It just is the way it is, isn't it? Like, you know, and I say we had a nucleus in that dressing room of proper Evertonians, chucking your Sage, Jimmy Martin, Shigsy, the other kick guy. You know, you've got some real Evertonians. Alan Herman had played for the club, like, you know. So you've got that connect with what it means to play for Everton, like, you know. So it's nobody's fault, but that's just how it is, I guess, like, you know. But the players today, they do care. You know, if you're a millionaire and you play bad, is it going to actually affect you the same as if you're playing for a contract and you've got a big mortgage? Like when I was a player, no, but that don't mean... I think it's a bit lazy. It's a bit of a cheap shot so the players don't care, because I know they do care, like, you know. And I say, when I went back in for that month with Ancelotti and that, and I worked with Yeri and Fabian, and it surprised me a bit because I maybe slipped into that feeling of thinking the players don't care. But when I worked with them and that, and I thought, you know what, you're actually really good lads. You're not aloof. You're not difficult. You don't know me, but we're having a great time and we're running together and we're having a laugh and you're including me in everything. You're actually lovely guys and that. And why wouldn't they be? Because Yenny Mina's come from I guess the rough part of Colombia, and you know they are what they are. And Fabian Delphi's come from the rough part of Leeds, and you know they've done well and they're millionaires and that, but they've all come through that same difficult way, haven't they? You know, so it's quite easy to fall into that narrative. Well, the players today don't care. You know, I didn't really see that, and I don't think that's true. I think it hurts less financially because, you know, I'm playing for my contract. I've got a young family at Preston now, and I need to get another contract. You know, because you know if I don't get a contract, you know, I'm on £300 a week at Preston. I need another contract, so I've got a place. So I've got that direct financial worry. The players nowadays in the Premier League don't have that. But that doesn't mean they don't care. It means they probably don't affect them. And you'll hear people say, bloody hell, them Newcastle players a couple of weeks ago, they're playing for their futures. But they're not, are they? Because if any of them players, we don't want you. Well, I don't know, Seville will have you. Or I don't know, Dortmund will have you. You know, and it's not like when I was playing for my future, if Preston don't want you, you're at bloody Bamber Bridge, mate, with respect to Bamber Bridge. So it is slightly different, but don't say they don't care.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is. It's a reactionary knee-jerk thing, but yeah, I think it's quite clear that that's not really the case.
But we're all. I've been in the game all my life, so I didn't go to Rotherham's game Friday because the weather was so bad. I would have gone. Me and my wife. My wife's been to every game. I've been working at Salford. I've been to very few games. We watched it on the iPlayer. And God, you know, you're shouting and bloody hell and Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Clear it, bloody hell. And then my lad scored the equaliser late on, and then full-time whistle goes, and you're kind of drained and bloody hell. And like, you know, so I know all about it. I suffer from the other side of that, you know, but I'm doing it like, you know, now, quarter of an hour after the game with a cup of tea, it's, yeah, fair point and that, like, you know, but we are human. And without that passion, there's really nothing left in the game, like, you know. So I suffered from that, but I'm getting involved on the iPlayer. Me and my wife, bloody hell, ref, what are you doing? Bloody hell, like, you know, make a change, man. When are you going to make a change? Bloody hell, you know. So we're all guilty of that. And that, in a way, that's what makes it so magical, that involvement and the things that you can go, Jesus, and then my lad scored the equaliser and you're jumping up and down in the lounge. And, you know, we're all human and never let that die, obviously.
Yeah, and what is it like watching your son play? Is it almost a unique experience watching your son play?
It's great. You want him to do well. I want him to be happy as a lad, you know. So I'm not walking around, well done, or you know, I text him before every game, run and smile. And you know, if he plays well, he plays well. If he plays badly, he plays badly. It doesn't mean I think less of him or I'm more proud when he scores a goal. And you know, we're not like that. When he played for Rochdale weren't the strongest team in League One, although it's a fabulous club, you know, and it's hard watching them losing all the time. Rotherham now are at top, and I think they're having an incredible season with breaking all records and that, like, you know, so that's better, obviously, isn't it? Like, you know what I mean? You know, if you play bad, you'll get some criticism, obviously, but not off me and his mum. You get no criticism, like, you know. And the pressure at the top's different than the pressure at the bottom, but the pressure at the top's a lot better than the pressure at the bottom. So it's good. Am I nervous before games? I guess I am. I'm that kind of person. I'm nervous. You know, when I played, when I was physio and we need to win that game with the 23s to win the cup, I'm nervous. I'm a nervous person. Some people, my wife's not a nervous person, you know, but, you know, I can take defeat, you know. So if Rotherham lose, had lost against Wigan, who are very good, by the way, Friday night, I'm disappointed. I'm not devastated. I'm not, you know, I understand, you know, I mean, my wife's fantastic. Like, you know, that's football. And, you know, the other side of the coin of winning is losing. And somebody said, what was it? Somebody said something like, losing is the condiment that makes winning taste so sweet. And that's great. And I've done a lot of one-on work with players who are struggling with performance anxiety. And I'll say, right, let's get one thing clear. Unless you play for Barcelona, Man City, or the very best teams, in your career, you'll win one, lose one, and draw one. That's your stats. So if you can't handle the fact that you're only winning 1 in 3, you need to do something else. And, you know, I reckon that, you know, a quarter of the time you'll play really well. a quarter of the time you'll play crap and half the time you'll play okay. And that's your reality. So you need to get that into your head now, that that's the nature of the game. And for Spurs, it went great, didn't it, yesterday? It was amazing. And when the final whistle went, Harry Kane clinched it, they go on disallowed, and they won 3-1 at Man City, performance of the week. And I see them jumping up and down, and I see what it's like and that, you know. But I know the other side of that is teams getting done in the last minute. Was it Chelsea beat Palace in the last minute yesterday? You know, so I've been on the other gut-wrenching side of results as well. So, you know, in that great poem, you have to take success and defeat on the chin. And, you know, they're both imposters, it says, isn't it? That famous Kipling, isn't it? I don't know what it's called. I don't know. But, you know, that's part of football. And if you play at any level, you're losing a hell of a lot of games, drawing a hell of a lot, and winning a third as well. Like, you know, so that's your reality. So you need to get used to that. And, you know, my lad's great. You know, he played well, he scored and that, like, you know, and he's happy, obviously. But he's not opening champagne. And if and when they lose, which they, of course they will, he won't be crying either. Like, you know, he's got a real good balance. Of course, he'd rather win and play well than play crap and lose. But he's mature enough, maybe getting through his mom, to understand that, you know, that's all part of the game. So he's got his head really screwed on about it, like, you know.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. It's been really great listening to you talk and that. Obviously, you've got a new book out, The Smell of Football 2. Do you want to talk a bit about that and what made you write a sequel?
I wrote the first one because I wanted the story to be told. It all sounds a bit naff, doesn't it? But then it got so many good rewards and that. I thought, you know what? I wrote it all myself as well. I thought, I want to be an author, and I'll write a second book with a different thread. Because the motivation of the second book was people would say, wow, you're actually a bona fide sports author now. And I was really determined, Al, that the second book was going to be as good, if not better, than the first book, which won them awards and that, like, you know. So I really tried hard to make it that way. I didn't want it to be a crap, shortened, abridged, horrible version of the first book. So I designed the cover and the same amount of words into it, and I spent ages doing it. And it got reviewed by a couple of professional journalists, and they both said, you know what, it's better than the first. And that made me feel fantastic. And that was the plan. And I say the first one was in all the bookshops. The second one's only on the website and that, www.thesmelloffootball2.co.uk. And it's doing great, and it's great to see the sales come through. And it's great more, though, to see people saying, wow, the book's amazing. So I'm really proud of it, mate. Really proud of it.
Well, yeah, it's a really good read, and if everyone listening to this, if they've enjoyed the interview, should definitely read it, because like I say, you wrote it all yourself. It's almost like listening to you now. It's almost like the book's like the words in the book coming to life and that. So
well, that's very nice, and kindly, a lot of people have said that. They said it's like sitting, talking to you, like, you know. And I think that's probably a great compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So what is next for Mick Rathbone?
Well, I retired last week. It was the longest week of my life, and I've retired for the last 5 years, and it's really good because you do a speech and people want you to stay, and you get a lovely present. So, for example, I retired at Forest. The last game was Bolton away, and I only went there for a year because of the travelling. I got a flat down there, and I retired, and they bought me a fabulous Paul Smith bag and a watch and that, like, you know. And I actually shortened my speech that day because I wanted to Google the bag, 800 quid. And then I left Everton in the summer, £600 Hugo Boss voucher. I left Salford last weekend, lovely whip round present, money and a nice card and a nice signed shirt, which is more important to me anyway. And then I retired, and I spent a week at home, and then Preston phoned me up and they said, we're getting another under-23 physio, and he's coming in, but he's got to work a month's notice. We've got no physio for a month. I said, right, I'm there. So tomorrow I'm going back to Preston for the fourth time, only for 4 weeks, as the under-23 physio. So it's my fourth incarnation at North End. So I'll be going there tomorrow, and can't wait to meet new people. Can't wait to get my shirt on, my boots on. Can't wait to get outside in the rain and the wind and get on the board and do some running and tell my jokes. And yeah, I can't wait. So I'm back for a month, just for a month.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think that's just about everything we've got. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Baz, again for speaking to us. Really great, been really great. Really enjoyed it.
Very much. I'm honoured that you would want to speak to me. Somebody, when I was with Salford the other day, Salford at Walsall, and afterwards a load of autograph hunters came over to me, and that, like, you know, blues fans from the 70s, and you know, and they said, sorry, but I said, mate, I said, it's an absolute privilege to sign their autograph. God, it's the first one I've been asked to sign for about 30 bloody years, mate, and that. And you know, I've always said it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice, and that. But it's a great honour when somebody would want to interview you or would want you to just write your name in their cherished book, and I never forget that. Like, you know, so there you go.
Yeah, absolutely excellent. So yeah, thank you again for speaking to us. If you've enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe to the Toffee Blues for more Everton content. And yeah, we will see you soon.